It started as an adventure. Three friends, Chris, Megan, and Alex, decided to go camping deep in the untamed wilderness of Blackwood Forest. They had heard the rumors from locals about people going missing, but laughed it off. Legends of an ancient man-eater stalking the woods seemed like nothing more than folklore designed to scare off hikers. Confident in their survival skills and equipped with modern gear, they believed they'd be fine. As the sun dipped below the horizon on their first night, the forest came alive with eerie sounds. The wind whispered through the trees, but beneath that was something else, distant, guttural growls. At first, they thought it was just a wild animal. But the noise persisted, circling their camp. "Maybe it's a wolf or something," Alex said, his voice tight with unease. He shone his flashlight into the thick trees, but there was nothing to be seen. "Wolves don't hunt people," Megan reassured, though her hands shook as she fumbled with the campfire. Chris sat quietly, staring into the darkness beyond the campfire's glow. "It's not a wolf," he whispered. "I heard about this thing that hunts here." Megan rolled her eyes. "Come on, don't tell me you're buying into those stories about the cannibal. I don't know what it is, but it's watching us." The fire crackled, but it felt as though the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. Then, the sound of snapping twigs came from the tree line. Slow. Deliberate. "Did you hear that?" Alex whispered, his flashlight shaking as he pointed it into the dense underbrush. Suddenly, the beam caught something, a flash of movement. It was fast, too fast to make out any details, but there was no mistaking the silhouette of a person. "Someone's out there," Megan whispered, backing away from the edge of the camp. Then they heard it, a low, guttural voice, barely human. "I can smell you." The words drifted on the wind, chilling them to the bone. Panic set in. They grabbed what little they could and bolted into the darkness. The forest seemed to close in around them, trees twisting into grotesque shapes in the faint moonlight. Every branch they brushed against, every root they stumbled over felt like a claw reaching for them. They ran for what felt like hours until their legs ached and lungs burned. But when they stopped, they realized something horrifying: they were lost. The GPS wasn't working, and the forest was a labyrinth. "We need to get to higher ground, find the road," Chris gasped, trying to catch his breath. But before they could move, the voice came again, closer now. "I'm going to eat you." The group spun around, flashlights darting wildly through the trees. And then they saw him, just for a moment. A man, tall and gaunt, his body covered in dirt and scars, his eyes glowing in the darkness like a predator's. He grinned, his teeth stained and jagged. "Run!" Alex screamed, shoving Megan forward as the cannibal lunged from the shadows. They scattered, sprinting through the forest. The cannibal was fast, unnaturally fast, and Chris could hear him right behind them, crashing through the undergrowth, laughing as he chased them. "Split up," Megan yelled, veering off to the right. "We can lose him in the trees." They darted in different directions, hoping the dense forest would confuse their pursuer. Chris ran until his legs nearly gave out, heart hammering in his chest. He ducked behind a large tree, trying to quiet his ragged breathing. For a few moments, there was silence. Then, a scream tore through the woods, Alex's scream. "No, no, please!" The sound of flesh tearing, bones breaking. Chris covered his mouth, fighting the urge to scream himself. He knew what was happening. Alex was gone. But there was no time to grieve. Chris knew he had to survive. He crouched low, moving silently through the trees, praying Megan had made it. After what felt like hours, he saw a break in the trees ahead, a small clearing. In the clearing, Megan was hiding behind a fallen log. She waved frantically at him, but her eyes were wide with terror. As Chris moved closer, he saw why. Standing in the middle of the clearing, the cannibal was crouched over something, his back to them. He was feasting on Alex's remains, blood dripping from his mouth as he tore into the body with his bare hands. Chris's stomach turned, and Megan's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a sob. The cannibal paused, lifting his head. He sniffed the air like a wild animal. "I can smell you," he whispered, blood dribbling from his lips. "You can't hide." Megan and Chris knew they had one chance. Together, they grabbed rocks from the ground, hurling them as hard as they could at the man. One struck him in the head, and he let out a furious scream, whipping around, eyes blazing. "Run!" Chris shouted, pulling Megan to her feet as they sprinted back into the forest. The cannibal gave chase, but they were faster this time, fueled by pure terror. Chris could hear him crashing behind them, his guttural snarls growing louder. But then, in the distance, Chris spotted it, a flicker of light. A road. "There!" he yelled, dragging Megan toward the faint glow of headlights. They burst through the trees, collapsing onto the asphalt as a truck screeched to a halt in front of them. The driver leaped out, looking at them in shock. "What the hell happened to you two?" Behind them, the forest was silent once more. The cannibal had vanished, retreating back into the shadows, waiting for his next prey. Narrator, haunting voice. Blackwood Forest keeps its secrets, and though Chris and Megan escaped, the cannibal still roams, hunting anyone foolish enough to enter his domain. Some say he's been out there for decades, living off the land, and the lost. And if you ever find yourself in those woods, remember, you can run, but you can't hide from the man who smells your fear. The screen fades to black, the sound of the wind whistling through the trees as the video ends.